Hey everybody, Ronan here, and welcome back to the channel. We got a lot of things to cover today, but before we get into that, Benger144D, thank you very much for your support over on Patreon. And as always, analytics are very important, so please don't forget to drop a like and a comment to help fuel the algorithm. And if this is your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so that way you'll never miss another upload from the channel. And if you want to support us even further, please consider becoming a patron or a channel member. You get exclusive access to things that I don't post on the channel and early access to everything else that I do. But with all that being said, let's get into What If Jessi and James Challenge the Sinnoh League Part 12. I hope you enjoy. We open up today's part in the exact aftermath where we left off in the previous one. Jessi and Xcloud have landed right in the middle of the gym in Canalave City. However, they are not alone, as they are immediately confronted by the leader Byron and his ace Bastiodon, as they had just finished getting done with the gym battle. The redhead is a bit confused as she's unsure of what is going on at first. All the while, Xcloud has taken it upon itself to immediately engage with the steel type, trying to prove its dominance in the domain of the fossil. As sonic booms and roars clang against the metal hide of Bastiodon, Jessi immediately begins to recognize what is going on. So in order to prevent Xcloud from doing anything foolish in the time being until she can figure out exactly where they are, she decides to recall the normal type for the time being. However, this doesn't mean that she's going to be off the hook, as both Bastiodon and Byron are a bit on the aggressive side due to this random redhead popping up in the middle of their gym out of nowhere. This causes Jessi to become a bit frightened at the current moment, and she decides that she wants to try to make a break for it as to try and get away to save her hide, not even realizing that this is the actual gym of the Canalave City. However, the leader isn't going to let the redhead get away, as he orders Bastiodon to stop her. The metal monolith is able to easily do so, grabbing Jessi by a tuft of her hair, preventing her from running away, as the redhead flares about, trying to prevent the fossil from causing any damage to her voluptuous red locks. She begins to scold the Pokemon for being so brutal. She didn't do anything to deserve this. However, Byron doesn't care what she has to say. The only thing he's concerned about is making sure that she can't get away with the things that she was trying to steal. So he picks up the phone, telling the redhead that he's going to call Officer Jenny to prevent her from getting away and have the policewoman come and arrest her. This causes Jessi to panic even more, as she doesn't want to go to jail considering everything that she just went through. And not only that, but who's going to save Meowth and James? However, as the redhead is flaring about, Byron quickly finds out that Officer Jenny is unavailable due to someone stealing a boat and heading to Iron Island. This doesn't sit well with the Steel-type gym leader, as that is not only his place of training, but it's also his place of employment when he isn't running the gym. Hanging up the phone, the leader says that something doesn't feel right about this. There's absolutely no reason why anybody should be on Iron Island, as all of the Pokemon have become highly aggressive to outsiders as of late, and the leader thinks that it may be because of this person that stole the boat that is in the marina. This immediately causes Jessi to stop flailing about, as the gym leader has become silent as he contemplates his next move. But that doesn't prevent her from slowly trying to break the grip that the metal monolith's mouth has on her red hair. However, Bastiodon isn't going to let Jessi get away so easily, as he begins to turn, tugging at her, causing her to fall over as he begins to drag the redhead over to his trainer. Luckily, the silence of the gym leader isn't going to last much longer, as Byron picks up his shovel before yelling that he is going to mount a defense. Bastiodon, we are going to Iron Island, so prepare yourself, because we're going to need your sturdy body to provide the ultimate shield. This, oddly enough, causes Jessi to calm down a bit, as she thinks that if the gym leader is going to be taken off, that means she's going to be let off the hook and he's going to let her go. However, just as she is thinking this to herself, Byron comes around Bastiodon with a pair of nice silver bracelets, stating that he made them himself back on the island, and he doesn't plan on letting her go until he can get a hold of Officer Jenny, so he's going to be taking her with him as his very special guest. This once again causes Jessi to flail about, declaring that she answers to no man, especially no scruffy old geezer like Byron. However, the gym leader simply states that she has one of two choices. Either A, she can go with him and be nice about it and calm, or B, he can lock her in the dungeon below the gym. As little do most people know, the Canalave gym was built on top of an old mine shaft, and it goes down for several hundred feet into pure darkness. The perfect place to keep a would-be prisoner who isn't wanting to cooperate. This immediately causes Jessi to clench up as she realizes that her options are slim and Byron is actually serious. Hanging her head, Jessi presents both of her wrists, to which Byron wastes no time in shackling them before recalling Bastiodon and stating that he's glad that she is beginning to see things his way. Now, come on, woman, we have no time to lose, Byron says, as he grabs the shackles that are around the wrist and begins to tote her out of the gym. As Jessi is dragged towards the entrance, she can't help but to think to herself, this is so humiliating. How did she end up in a situation like this? However, just as Byron bursts through the door declaring that he will save Iron Island, he's met with something that he wasn't expecting: the leader of the Oreburg gym and his only son, Roark. Needless to say, the young man is a bit surprised at what he finds: his father declaring that he's going to save an island with a redhead in handcuffs. It's a bit odd and a bit concerning. Thinking that his father has finally gone off the deep end, Roark prepares to deploy Rampardos in an attempt to try and save Jessi. However, Byron tells the boy that he has no time for his antics. Iron Island is under attack and they have to go save it. Roark looks at his father, a bit puzzled, questioning the old man on why he has Jessi shackled in handcuffs. Wait, you know this woman? The old man states as he questions his son about the validity of that statement. Yeah, she's challenging the gyms here in Sinnoh. As a matter of fact, she's already earned my badge. This causes Byron to look down at the redhead, who has a look of complete confusion and a bit of terror on her face. So you're not here to rob the gym, he says, to which Jessi meekly shakes her head back and forth, stating no. Then where did you come from, and how did you get in the middle of my gym the way you did? With a deep sigh, Jessi says, you wouldn't believe me if I told you, but please, can you get me out of these cuffs? With one last odd eye at the redhead before Roark states that it's okay, Byron decides to heed the request at the behest of his son before he causes any more hostility in the situation. The younger gym leader catches on his dad's disdain for the woman, stating that he needs to relax. Jessi's not a bad guy. He battled her and she beat him fair and square. She doesn't give off those kind of vibes. This statement causes the redhead to gulp a bit, as she's never had someone just trust her like that or stick up for her, and this causes a momentary lapse as she begins to realize that behind his nerdy glasses, Roark is kinda cute in a nerd, sciencey kind of way. But this is broken when Byron says that he still doesn't trust her, so the redhead will be coming with them. Wait, what do you mean going with you? Jessi says, which Roark questions as well. I told you, Iron Island is under attack and we need to get there as soon as possible, so you're both coming with me. You because you're my son and I know you're a competent trainer, and you because my son vouches for you, and if you are a competent trainer, then we may need your help. And besides, I don't want you out of my sight for the time being. Jessi begins to protest, but she's immediately informed that she has one of two choices. Either she can help them, or she can go back in the shackles and into the shaft at the bottom of the gym. This immediately causes the redhead to relent as she lets out a sigh, wondering what she has actually gotten herself into. This is where Byron declares that they need to get going. The harbor isn't that far away and they can catch a boat ride all the way to the island. As the old man takes off with his shover draped around his shoulder, Roark apologizes for his father and the threat of him using that mineshaft. He's been doing it ever since he was a boy, though he's never actually followed through it. However, this is the first time he's ever actually seen his father use those shackles on someone. Jessi just looks at the rock-type gym leader before hanging her head. Well, at least I'll have him to keep me company, she thinks to herself as they take off to the marina in an attempt to find a boat to Iron Island. Luckily for the redhead and her escorts, it doesn't take that long to get to the marina, as the Canalave gym is pretty much set on the river that leads out of the city. However, once the trio arrive, it seems to be some sort of frenzy that is happening, as all of the police officers from Canalave City have swarmed the place and cornered off with yellow caution tape. Well, it looks like we're not going to be able to go, Jessi says. However, Byron refused to be stopped by this mere inconvenience, as he declares to speak with Officer Jenny in his bellowing tone that he normally carries. This immediately gets the attention of everyone, causing them to stare at the three as Roark meekly tries to disappear without a trace, as he's never really liked it when his dad starts to act like this. Man, he's so larger than life and attracts the attention of everyone. Sometimes I just want to crawl in a hole and die, Roark says. This comment immediately catches the attention of Jessi. However, she's going to be interrupted in her thoughts when Officer Jenny manages to make herself present, beginning to inform Byron, Roark, and the redhead on exactly what is going on. From what has been gathered, there's a purple-haired man that managed to fool the marina guards into getting them to take him to the island, under the guise that he was the local preservist. But then, only minutes after they departed, the real team showed up, sending everything into a frenzy down here. We've been scrambling to try and find a boat that can actually take us over to the island. However, the problem is, there's not one big enough to fit the type of force that we would need to stand up to all of the hostile Pokemon, plus try and take down whatever this culprit is up to. While Byron has heard everything that Officer Ginny says and immediately steps forward to address the situation, stating that him and his son will be the ones to handle things on Iron Island, the gym leader is going to be immediately interrupted by Jessi, as there's been one thing in Officer Jenny's statements that have caught her attention, and that's the fact that she stated a purple-haired man. This immediately causes Jessi to jump to the front as she pushes Byron out of the way, demanding to know everything that Officer Jenny knows about this person. The blue-haired woman doesn't really really know how to react to this at first. However, Roark states that she is with them, so it'd be okay to let her know everything that Officer Jenny knows. This causes the policewoman to speak in a reserved tone at first, stating that the only reports they have are just a description. It seemed that he was really well dressed and was able to pass off as one of the inspectors that was going to the island today. While nothing did seem out of the ordinary with his description, a regular run-of-the-mill face that could get lost in the crowd, there was one thing that was stated about it that could help pinpoint him. It was the fact that this person seemed to have a flair for the dramatic. This immediately causes Jessi to begin to wind up in her own thoughts. Was that James? No, it can't be. We've been searching for weeks across Sinnoh trying to find out where Team Galactic has hidden him. Was he able to escape somehow? These are all things that are turning in Jessi's head. However, the redhead isn't going to remain silent, as she immediately turns to Byron and Roark, stating that they need to go to the island now. She thinks that the person that stole the boat and went over there may be linked to the disappearance of one of her friends, and if she has anything to say about it, then she's going to pull the answers out of them one word at a time. The intensity and the aggression of the redhead immediately causes both Roark and Byron to flinch, as they didn't think this was a side that she had to herself. While the gym leader doesn't like the fact that the redhead has basically taken over his operation, the truth is he can't deny that Jessi is right. They need to get to the island, and if it is the case that this person may have had something to do with the disappearance of her so-called friend, then it's all the more critical they get there as soon as possible. Turning to Officer Jenny, the steel-type specialist states that they will be heading out on whatever boat that they have available, to which the officer merely points to a small dinghy that can house maybe 3 or 4 people. Fine, that'll do, Byron says, before turning to his son and telling him that they need to get going. They're going to have a lot of work and they have a lot of ground to make up if they have any hopes of catching this person that Jessi says had the hand in her friend disappearing. Turning, Byron makes the statement that they should all go aboard. However, the gym leader is going to find out firsthand that he has lost complete and total control of this operation, as Jessi is already in the driver's seat of the boat, leaving both him and Roark standing on the docks of the marina, questioning what exactly they've gotten themselves into. However, they're not going to be able to think about this for long, as the redhead immediately demands that they get going, or she's going to leave them behind. This causes both Byron and Roark to shake themselves from their funk before running off down the dock to try and catch the boat, as Jessi has already put it into gear and is taken off away from the marina. As the two gym leaders yell that the redhead needs to stop, she can't leave without them, we're going to flash over to Iron Island itself. It's here that we find our favorite purple-haired man, James, in the exact moment that we left off with him in the previous part. He is surrounded by a group of people that he didn't know was here, while being blind simultaneously by lights. Both the purple-haired man and Rotom are feeling the pressure as they are having trouble seeing exactly what is going on. However, a very familiar face rings throughout the light as James's spine begins to shiver while the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. "My love, have you finally come to accept my proposal for marriage?" the voice echoes. This is when James, squinting through his fingers blocking the light from him, can barely see the outline of a dark image coming into a view, and just as the purple-haired man thought, all of his nightmares have come to fruition, as before him stands Jezebel. However, the redhead seems to have taken on a new identity as of late, as she has adored the clothes and the insignia of the organization that James was sent to Sinnoh to investigate. Instantly, James knows what that feeling that he had in the pit of his stomach was. He was walking into the worst trap that he possibly could, as Jezebel has now come into full view to greet her love. James immediately commands Rotom to use a discharge in an attempt to try and create a distraction, so that way he can make his escape. However, this is going to be cut short when Jezebel's prized Vileplume steps from within the shadows and hits the electric type with a pedal dance that sends it careening into the cave wall. This immediately begins to trigger a response from Dust Noir from the shadows. However, James gives it a look, almost to say, stop, wait. If they wanted to cause harm to him, then they would have attacked him directly, and not Rotom. For now, he wants the ghost type to stay put. That way, it can be an ace in the hole if need be. However, James's gaze with his Pokemon is going to be quickly interrupted when Jezebel and Vileplume begin to surround him, as well as the rest of the people come into view, which all just so happens to be the grunts of Team Galactic. The rambunctious redhead greets her love, stating that she has come a long way looking for him, and now that they've finally caught up to each other, nothing's going to stop them from officially tying the knots and officially taking their seats at the head of his family, and finally allowing his parents to retire from their business. However, James isn't having any of this, immediately beginning to argue with Jezebel, stating that he's not here for that. He's on a very important mission, and he doesn't have time for her shenanigans, as he's still not quite convinced that Jezebel has actually joined Team Galactic, but rather heard about them and decided to adopt their moniker so that way she could trick him into falling into this trap. However, James is going to find out quick, fast, and in a hurry that he couldn't be more wrong, as from within the shadows steps another redhead that he's had problems with within the last recent weeks in Sinnoh, the commander of Team Galactic, Mars, and her very pudgy ugly. That redhead has a very sadistic smile on her face as she takes great pleasure in slapping some shackles on James, complimenting that these silver handcuffs look very good with his purple hair. This immediately triggers a response response from James as he begins to engage with a very abrasive conversation with Jezebel as he demands to know why she would join someone like Team Galactic. Does she have any idea what she has done? Not only are they a danger to his organization and their operations, but from what he's uncovered, they're even a greater threat to the region of Sinnoh and the world as a whole. However, Jezebel simply laughs as she states they're merely a means to an end. She's using them so that way she could get her beloved back, and now that she has James in her possession, they will be taking their leave and heading back to James's house in southern Sinnoh. However, this is going to trigger a response from Mars as she immediately speaks up stating that wasn't the deal. They have strict orders from Cyrus, which Jezebel had agreed to upon her induction into Team Galactic. They were to capture James and bring him back to the main base of operations. That way, Cyrus could interrogate the purple-haired man to find out exactly what they were doing here in the region of Sinnoh, and more importantly, who sent them. However, the fiery redhead isn't going to be talked down to by Commander Mars, stating that she knows exactly what their arrangement was, but she feels like that arrangement has expired, and she would merely like to step away and take her leave. After all, James poses no threat to them once he's in her custody. This statement immediately causes the fire inside of Mars to erupt, as her and Perugly begin to march aggressively in the direction of Jezebel. However, this redhead will not back down from this catfight, as she meets Mars with the same aggression as Vileplume joins her side. The two redheads are merely seconds away from erupting in an all-out brawl, as their two Pokemon prepare to engage in battle. James can do nothing but watch on in pure confusion, completely dumbfounded at the events that are unfolding before him. While he's glad that Jezebel is fighting for his freedom, the fact is that it's Jezebel that is fighting for his freedom. He doesn't really know which side to root for. All the while, from the shadows, Dusknoir seems to be hanging out, awaiting for a signal from its trainer. However, unfortunately for the ghost, it seems that James has lost his train of thought as he is completely fixated on the events that are about to unfold in front of him. And just like a typical catfight, the slightest thing sets it off as Jezebel and Mars begin to engage in a battle. But before their Pokemon can come to blows, a simple laughter comes from within the shadows of the cave as it echoes. "You two need to stop acting like children," the voice says. This immediately causes the two redheads to stop as Mars stands at attention, while Jezebel merely looks on, a bit frustrated that she didn't get a chance to demonstrate her power and put this she-devil in her place. However, before Jezebel can say anything, from within the shadows emerges another commander, someone that James hasn't had the pleasure of meeting before. However, by the description of him, he recognizes it from the last time that he saw Meowth, which is confirmed by Mars as she greets them as Commander Saturn, which seems to have a higher ranking than the redhead. Saturn states that they don't have time for their petty rivalry and they can settle that later. They must attend to the reason why they are there. The commander then turns to James, kneeling down before beginning to interrogate the purple man on who he is and who he works for. However, James refuses to answer, stating that it doesn't matter what Saturn does to him. His mouth is like an Ursaring trap, and there's no way they're going to get any information out of him. However, this merely prompts a very sinister smile from Saturn, as he states he was hoping James would say something like that, as he does much prefer the alternative methods. This immediately causes James to take a big gulp, as he questions what are these alternative methods that the commander speaks of with such glee, to which Saturn states it's nothing too bad. After all, somebody of your intensity and fortitude should have no problem dealing with this, before turning to call on his ever-faithful companion, Toxicroak. From within the shadows steps a very sadistic bipedal toad that seems to be dripping poison from the talons on the edge of its hands. This is my partner Toxicroak, and it prefers to get its hands dirty, unlike me. So while I tend to other matters, Toxicroak is going to make sure that it can pull whatever information out of you that you happen to have. This immediately causes James to panic as he lets out a cry, trying to figure out any way to get out of here. However, this is going to be to little avail, as the poison type begins to close in on James. The purple-haired man can see that its arms are beginning to swell as the poison within its body has been forced within its knuckles. Now panicking even harder, James begins to move around sporadically, causing a little bit of trouble for Toxicroak as it tries to make the first bit of injection into the keister of James. As James does his best to try to prevent the ungodly pain from coming his way, the first injection is stopped when Vileplume steps in at the command of Jezebel, as she states this wasn't part of the deal. She would help them capture James, but in exchange, there was supposed to be no harm that comes to him. However, Saturn simply smiles as he reminds Jezebel that their deal was changed the moment that she tried to change the terms and conditions by taking James away before he would answer any of their questions. So unless she would like to join the purple-haired man, she better step back and tell her Vileplume to do so as well, or things could get rather ugly for not only James, but her, as all of the grunts surround the redhead, preparing to deploy a set of Pokeballs, fully ready to battle at the command of Saturn. This causes the redhead to command Vileplume to stand down, which allows its grip to break just enough on Toxicroak for it to tear its hand free, as it begins the process once again to pump James full of some of its trademark poison. However, as the color on James's face begins to drain from the sheer fear that he's beginning to feel, this is when things are going to come to a screeching halt, as over the intercoms there's a voice that tells Saturn they think they found what they've been looking for. Fine, I'll be right there, the commander says, before turning to Mars and Jezebel, stating that they're going to continue this when he gets back, so they are to do nothing but to keep James where he is currently, unable to move or get away. If anything happens, then they will both have to answer to him personally. Saturn then tells Toxicroak to stand down. They have to go check this out, which ironically causes a sad look to plaster itself across the Toad's face, as it seems like it was really enjoying the idea of causing physical harm to the purple-haired man. As Saturn disappears deeper into the cave and James is able to breathe a sigh of relief, both Jezebel and Mars take seats opposite of James, watching each other, making sure that neither one of them make any sudden movements, as the commander and the red-headed harlot have come to not really share any trust for each other. Vileplume, I want you to be ready to move on a moment's notice, Jezebel says. All the while, in tandem, Mars is telling Perugly the same thing. While dead in the middle of the two, at equal distance away, James just sits there contemplating Hex's next move, having seemingly forgot that from the shadows, his ghost still looks on, awaiting the command of its trainer. However, as it fades in and out of the shadows, trying to debate on what it should do next, this is when Dust Noir is going to get the surprise of its afterlife, as from within the shadows, it can see movement with its lone eye. This immediately causes the ghost to flare up as it prepares to attack, but as they come into view, it causes it to recede its shadow punch that it was preparing to deploy, as while it doesn't recognize two of the people, it does recognize one of them. Immediately, the ghost rushes this redhead, as it's one that it's all too familiar with. It's here that Jessi, Roark, and Byron have all made their way into the depths of Iron Island, and the ghost immediately wraps its eerie hands around the redhead, giving her a hug, causing Jessi to begin to scream in pain. However, luckily, Roark is able to cover her mouth with his hand, preventing any type of sound from coming out. It's in this moment that Jessi has a cluster of mixed feelings, complete and total horror as she doesn't know what is attacking her, but also complete and total euphoria as Roark has made contact with the redhead. This is where the gym leader asks what Jessi is doing. Why did she let out a loud yeep like that? To which she begins to mumble something under her breath, causing Roark to break his hold over her mouth temporarily as Jessi explains something has a hold of her in a deep whisper. This is when the lone eye of the ghost type begins to pop out, causing both Byron and Roark to take a defensive stance as they can see what is behind Jessi. This immediately causes shivers to run down the spine of the redhead as she's not liking the look on their faces. Guys, what is going on? She says. However, neither one of them can do anything but look on in sheer terror as they've heard word of what Dust Noirs do to their victims, and they think that Jessi is about to be the next one. However, what happens next is going to leave them all dumbfounded as Dust Noir begins to squeeze Jessi and bounce up and down happily in the silence of the darkness. This is when she commands to be let go, to which Dust Noir finally realizes that he's causing her a little bit of pain, so the ghost type drops her flat on her butt. This forces Jessi to turn around to look it in the eye for the first time. First, the redhead is furious that this ghost type Pokemon would attack her, but then something triggers in her. Wait, are you who I think you are? Jessi says, to which Dust Noir begins to nod silently, signaling that it is the same Dusclops that Jessi saw the last time she was with James. The ghost type then points over to its trainer and on the other side of the cave where Rotom now lay unconscious from the attack that had taken from Vileplume earlier. This is where Jessi comments to both Byron and Roark, stating that her friend is the one in the middle of the cave that's currently being watched by those two, and then Jessi stops as a fire begins to flare inside of her. Jezebel, she states to herself, that red harlot managed to find James. This is where Roark begins to question Jessi on if she's okay. However, it takes a couple of times of him poking at her before he finally gets a response, which the redhead states that those two out there, the two redheads, they are the ones working for the organization that kidnapped her friend, which is sitting in between the two. However, Byron is quick to point out that the one that is sitting in the middle matches the description of the one that stole the boat, to which Jessi immediately looks at the gym leader, causing fear to plaster across his face. James was not the one who stole the boat, she says. It couldn't have been him. I guarantee you that it had to have been one of their organization, and I'd be willing to bet that they're the reason why all the Pokemon in this cave and on the island have become super aggressive as of late. Well, do you know who they are? Byron questions, to which Jessi states from what she and her friends were able to gather, they're an organization known as Galactic, and whatever they're up to isn't good for the region of Sinnoh or for the rest of the world. From what they've been able to find, they seem to be after some sort of power, but what kind of power, they don't know. This is when Roark questions Jessi on how she knows all this, which the redhead begins to immediately fumble her words as she searches for an answer. However, she simply states that she works for an undercover organization that's based in the CANT region, and her and two of her friends were sent here to investigate this organization known as Galactic, as they had gotten word that they were up to some very foul deeds. She can't go too much into detail, as it's all top secret and it could hurt their investigation. Just know that they are on the same side. And they have two mission objectives here today. One is to capture whatever Galactic is after here on Iron Island, and two is to save her friend. If they fail in either one of these, then it could mean that her entire mission will be compromised. Jessi says this with such authority and conviction in her voice that both Byron and Roark don't even question the redhead. They immediately ask what they can do to help, finding Jessi in a position that she wasn't planning on being in. However, luckily for the redhead, she's able to think on her feet as she tells them to come in close, as well as Dust Noir, because she has an idea that they're going to have to implement if they have any hope of achieving both of their directives. After a few moments of muffled whispers, the trio break as Jessi orders Dust Noir to use its powers to stay within the shadows to gather James's other Pokemon, while it provides support while she runs the main distraction. The plan is simple. She's going to capture the attention of both Jezebel and Mars. The reason for it is because she knows that her presence is going to immediately send Jezebel into a frenzy, which is exactly what they need to make sure that they can pull this off. All the while, Roark and Byron are going to be going after that man that disappeared down the tunnel. Jessi used a bit of finesse to try and convince them that that man was the one that stole the boat onto Iron Island, considering he has blue hair. She informed the duo that man's name was Saturn, and she's confident that he has everything to do with this entire situation, considering she's been tailing him since she got to the Sinnoh region. By this point, any doubt that Byron had for Jessi has faded with the events that have unfolded and the backing of his son. So the Steel-type gym leader is quick to take the command of this redhead as he begins to charge down the cave, muttering defense as it echoes, with his son in tail yelling for his father to be quiet. This immediately gets Jessi to hang her head as she didn't know what she was getting herself into. However, there's not going to be a lot of time to dwell on this as Byron's outburst has captured the attention of both Mars and Jezebel, forcing them to break their gaze on each other as they were watching over James, drawing the attention of the two in the direction of Jessi. Well, I guess there's no time like the present, she thinks to herself, as she emerges from behind a rock to announce her presence and state that she's here to put a stop to whatever plans that Galactic seems to be trying to execute today. This statement immediately sends Mars into a frenzy as she demands to know who this redhead is. However, she is going to be immediately subdued by the bellowing voice of both Jezebel and James. However, it's going to be for different reasons as they both call the name of the redhead Jessi. Jezebel because she's angered that Jessi has dared to show her face here, while James is surprised here of all the places that he could have run into her, though her timing could have been a little bit better. This immediately causes his feisty Team Rocket companion to begin to yell at James to keep his mouth shut. He's the one who got himself into this mess, and now she's got to get him out. This causes James to recoil in fear a little bit, as it's been a while since he's taken a lashing from Jessi. However, deep down, he's very happy to see that she is alright, even though she's currently biting his head off from across the cavern. But this is going to be of little use, as currently, Jessi has caught the ire of both Mars and Jezebel. However, the irritation in Mars's voice is what carries the situation, as she demands to know who Jessi is and why Jezebel knows her, to which causes the betrothed of James to go into a brief tangent about how she knows Jessi and how Jessi is connected to James, in the process revealing the fact that they work for the Team Rocket organization. This causes Mars to laugh, as she thought this was going to be a real problem, but you belong to the same organization that those other rejects came from, and they were nothing special, so there shouldn't be any problems with you. This comment immediately catches James and Jessi's attention as they demand to know what she means by other rejects. Oh, a few months ago we had two of your former companions join us. I think their name was Cassidy and Biff? Botch? Butch? Bongo? I don't know. Who could keep up with the grunts that just come through our organization? But either way, they brought us some technology that we found rather useful. However, after that, their abilities to produce anything of use really didn't go that far. So as far as I'm concerned, they're just as useless as you two. However, as Mars begins to go into her tangent about how she finds the organization of Team Rocket a pathetic one, this is going to be immediately cut off by a tirade of Jessi as she begins to jump down the throat of the redhead, stating that she has no idea what she's talking about, and she demands to know everything that Mars knows about Butch and Cassidy. But this isn't going to get the result that Jessi wanted, as Mars finds this rather disrespectful, and she insists that she's going to have to teach the redhead some manners, telling her purr ugly that it's time for it to finally sharpen its claws. But it's not going to be the only one that gets in on the action, as Jezebel and Vileplume step forward as they both want a piece of Jessi. As the way this redhead sees it, the only way that she's ever going to truly be able to take James home is if Jessi is dealt with promptly. Jessi knows that this is going to be a bit difficult, and James tells her to run, save herself. She doesn't need to save him. However, the redhead merely tells him to pipe down. She's got this. Though, in the back of her mind, she's not too confident in this actual ability. However, Jessi knows that there is an alternate reason to why she needs to make sure that she keeps all of the attention on her, and that is because in the shadows, Dust Noir is doing its thing, as it has already gathered Rotom and moved on to the next stage of their plan, slowly working its way through the darkness while trying to get to its trainer, so that way it can release James from its shackles. So, as the Ghost 2 prepares to execute Phase 2, Jessi decides that it's going to be time for her to produce 2 Pokemon of her own, which she does in the form of Spheal and Numel. This immediately causes the 2 counterpart redheads to herself to begin to laugh as they think that both of Jessi's Pokemon are completely pathetic. There's no way they could hope to cause any type of damage to either Purugly or Vileplume. It's clear that out of the 3 of them, Jessi is the inferior redhead. These comments fire up the Rocket Mistress as Jessi begins to steam from the ears, telling the 2 that they have no idea what they're talking about, and she'll prove it right here, ordering both Spheal and Numel to attack. While the Ice type is quick to obey its trainer's command, Numel is still moving as slow as ever, as it does still take a while for it to get going. This allows a perfect counterattack from both Purugly and Vileplume that sends not only the Ice type, but the Fire type into one of the cavern walls, forcing both Jezebel and Mars to laugh even harder. However, the battle isn't over, as both Numel and Spheal decide that they're going to try their hand again, jumping in front of their trainer as they try the same tactics one more time, but the results is the same, and this just happens over and over and over again. It's painfully obvious at this point that neither one of Jessi's Pokemon stand a chance against Vileplume or Purugly, as both Numel and Spheal have taken a beating. However, James notices something. It seems like Jessi isn't really trying, and the purple-haired man is beginning to wonder why. However, this is when he notices the reason, as from within the shadows that's being cast from him, he can see the eye of his ghost-type Dusknoir, and it just merely gives him a signal to be quiet, as its hands reach out from the ground to begin unlocking the mechanisms that shackle its trainer's wrists. Wow, so Jessi is really taking all of these hits just to make sure that James has the opportunity to get free. As the ghost type works its magic on the shackles on James, he begins to get emotional as he realizes that Jessi really does care for him. However, this is when things are going to take a turn, as both Mars and Jezebel have tired of this interaction with the redhead, and they want to end this post-haste, so that way they can get back to the business at hand, guarding James. So the 2 redheads decide that it's time to go in for an actual kill shot, if you will, with a petal dance and a slash. This immediately causes Jessi to panic, as she allowed both of her Pokemon to take multiple hits to keep the attention on them. This has put them in an awkward spot, as both Numel and Spheal are pretty badly hurt, and she doesn't know if they're going to be able to take another one. This is where it gets to the point where Jessi has to make a decision, and reluctantly, she begins to reach to her belt to pull out the ball of X-Cloud. If anything, at least it will run a distraction while she figures out what to do with both Numel and Spheal. However, all 3 of the redheads are going to get a surprise, as it seems like the frustration of the situation has not only affected their trainer, but both Spheal and Numel themselves, as simultaneously they both let out a cry as the attacks close in to prepare to end them, and then they begin to glow in an evolutionary light. The power that begins to emit from them is enough to fend off the assault that was coming their way, as within a mere matter of seconds, from within the light emerges a fully evolved Camerupt and Spheal's next stage evolution, Celio, which immediately prompts a counterattack from the 2, as from within the light, a lava plume and an ice ball is sent hurtling in the direction of the 2 opponents, which is enough to both simultaneously overpower Purugly and Vileplume, knocking them both out in one fell swoop as the light fades to reveal Jessi's 2 new evolutions. This was something that was completely unexpected, as now Mars and Jezebel are both looking at each other completely dumbfounded. Neither one of them have any other Pokemon with them at this current time because they didn't think that they would need it. They weren't expecting for their 2 aces to be knocked out like that. This forces both of the redheads into an immediate retreat as they recall their Pokemon before taking down the tunnel after Saturn in hopes that their leader has had better luck. However, just as the 2 redheads begin to vanish, something is going to happen that is going to throw everyone for a loop, as Iron Island begins to violently shake as the cavern that they are in starts to crack at the walls and becomes unstable and unsafe to be in. Jessi immediately looks at James and tells him that they have to go. They don't have any time to wait around. But Jessi, what about them? They have the information we need. However, Jessi screams she doesn't care. She just barely managed to save James, and both of her Pokemon are hurt. They need to get out of here now before the cave crumbles in on them, and they don't have the option of escape. The purple-haired man sees that Jessi is right as he begins to watch the rocks fall as both Jezebel and Mars disappear down their cavern. Jessi grabs James before pulling him to the entrance that she had come in on, in hopes that the boat is still close to the edge. As they vanish, we fade over to the area where Byron and Roark are currently facing down Saturn, as Bastiodon are finding their hands full against the commander's ace, Toxicroak. This was a mere moments before the island started to shake vigorously, and it's here we see the reason why, as Saturn has found what he came to the island to look for, some sort of strange metallic orb that radiates an aura that had sat at the center of the island. This is what the commander had been seeking the entire time. However, Byron knows the significance of this orb, and he yells for Saturn not to pick it up, but the commander merely ignores the gym leader, pulling it from within its resting place as it glows intensely in its hand. Finally, the adamant orb, the commander says. It's at this moment we see the island begin to violently shake. No, you don't know what you've done. You're going to disrupt the entire ecosystem of this entire island if you don't put that back. However, Saturn merely laughs, stating he doesn't care about this island. He only only cares about what he can get out of it, which this is exactly what he was looking for. Now, Toxicroak, it's time to finish up. Use a brick break on both of them. The poison frog nods as it decides it's no longer time to play around before erupting both of its fists in a fighting energy and cracking the two fossils atop of their head, knocking them out cold. What can I say? It's been a blast, but I can't stick around. It seems that this place is becoming unstable, Saturn says. Hopefully you two can get out just fine. Now, Toxicroak, let's go. Turning, the poison type takes off after its trainer as Saturn disappears down a cavern, leaving both Byron and Roark to contemplate how they're going to get out. Recalling their two fossils, the last thing we see is the cavern beginning to collapse in on the two gym leaders, as we fade outside to Jessi and James, as they have barely made it to the edge of the island. Frantically peering out into the open ocean, Jessi tries to find the boat that they rode in on. However, this proves to be more difficult than she had originally thought, as all the seismic activity has made the seas around the island extremely rough. However, with a little bit of luck, she does see the ship just offshore, trying to make its way back to the island. All the while, above Jessi, she can see an airship taking off with the galactic symbol on the side. It looks like they got away, James says. Yeah, however, we can't worry about that now. We need to get off this island. Hopefully, Byron and Roark were able to get out. Who was that, James says. Did we leave somebody behind in the cave? However, the purple-haired man isn't going to have to worry, as from within the cave jumps both the father and son duo, as it slowly begins to collapse in on itself, pushing them down the side of the mountain that makes up most of Iron Island. The two gym leaders run with all of their might, trying to escape a rock slide that is now behind them, only to jump with all of their might, landing in the water at the island's edge. Luckily, this is just in time as the boat gets close enough for them all to jump on. The island is still violently shaking, and Byron tells the captain to step on it. They need to get away from here now. Doing what he can, the captain opens up the throttle in an attempt to push away from the island and get out of these rough seas. All the while, the quartet watches as Iron Island slowly begins to shrink before disappearing beneath the waves of the sea. Dad, what exactly was that thing that Saturn took from the cave? Roark questions. However, Byron says nothing, merely peering out over the open ocean stoically, with a look of concern and terror plastered across his face. With no other options, the captain beckons to turn the ship around, as they cannot stay out in these seas. All the seismic activity is causing the waters to become rougher and rougher, so pushing the throttle to the max, the engines are tested as they pull away slowly by slowly from what was once the site of Iron Island. It takes a while, but by sunset, they are eventually able to reach the shores of Canalave City. However, this is not going to be met without controversy, as when both James and Jessi dismount the boat, they are immediately swarmed by all of the officers and Jenny of the whole city. They immediately slap handcuffs on James, telling the purple-haired man that he's under arrest for stealing one of the boats from the marina. A silent panic begins to befall the man's face, as he looks to Jessi, Roark, and Byron for any type of assistance. This is where Jessi speaks up, stating that they have the wrong man. The person that they were looking for was on Iron Island, trying to steal something of great value there. Him and the organization known as Galactic is the reason why Iron Island is now just a smoldering pile beneath the waves in Canalave Harbor. Jenny looks at the redhead inquisitively, questioning what Jessi means by Iron Island resting beneath the waves. This is where Byron finally speaks up, stating that it's true. Everything that the redhead has said is true. The island was attacked by some sort of organization, and they stole something of great value. When they did, it caused the island to begin to shake like Byron had never felt it before. Then, before they knew it, everything around them was collapsing. They were barely able to escape it before it sank beneath the waves. This organization, known as Galactic, are the ones to blame for it. Well, even if that is the case, that doesn't excuse the fact that this man stole a boat from the harbor, Jenny says. However, Byron is quick to put a stop to this, stating that Jenny has the wrong person. He saw the man that stole the boat with his own two eyes. He had escaped with that organization known as Galactic. When we arrived, this man that you have in handcuffs was their captive. Hearing what Byron is saying, Jenny begins to look at James, stating that he looks awfully familiar to the one that had stole the boat, based upon the descriptions that were given. However, Byron assures her that Jenny has been mistaken. She knows more than anyone that eyewitness descriptions can be unreliable in moments of high stress, to which she does state is a possibility. Roark steps forward, seconding his father's claims, stating that he saw the man himself. They both had blue hair. The only difference is that man was working for Galactic. James actually helped us escape. We can assure you that you have the wrong man. With everyone telling her that she is wrong in her apprehension, Jenny decides that she's going to take a closer look at the evidence, and considering she doesn't have anything solid to go on right now, she tells James that he is free to go. However, she orders him not to leave Canalave City, as she may have more questions in the meantime. With that, she takes his new shiny steel bracelets off, telling the man that she's sorry for the aggression that she showed, but she will be by the Pokemon Center tomorrow to question him about everything that has been happening. Jenny then states that she's going to need them all to stick around for a round of questioning so that way they can debrief on what happened at Iron Island, to which Jessi and James, completely exhausted from the event, let out a deep elated sigh. However, the duo is told as to not arise suspicion from anyone else here. They just barely dodged a bullet bullet with James stealing that boat, and they want to make sure that they stay on the good graces of everyone, at least until they're out of the city. So after a couple more hours of questioning and taking statements, Jessi and James are finally allowed to return to the Pokemon Center. But not before Jessi gets a chance to bid farewell to her new interest, Roark, as the Rock-type gym leader questions if he's going to get a chance to see the redhead before he has to head back to Oreburgh City, to which Jessi states that she plans on challenging the gym. So if Roark can stick by for a couple of more days, then they will have plenty of time to see each other before they both have to leave the city. This pleases the gym leader, to which he states he will be at the gym whenever she's ready to challenge his father. He then takes his leave, telling his old man that they should get going, to which Byron doesn't really say anything, just letting out a nod before turning and heading in the direction of the gym, leaving Jessi to stand there with James, looking on a bit puzzled as she lets out a bit of a girlish giggle, before she turns, all renewed with strength and vigor, telling James that they should get back to the Pokemon Center. There's a lot that they need to talk about before her gym battle tomorrow. So with that, they head off, back to the Pokemon Center to James's rooms that he has had for the last couple of days. And after getting a chance to clean up and a good meal, considering Jessi hasn't really had any of that in quite a while, the two finally get a chance to relax. And this is where the floodgates break, as James begins to unload with a barrage of questions to Jessi, asking what happened to her and Meowth, where have they been? He thought they were under the captivity of Team Galactic, as well as questioning where's Meowth and how did Jessi get here in Canalave City, to which the redhead does her best to let James in on everything that has been going on with them. However, there are a few answers that she just doesn't know, as she explains her adventures in the distortion world with Giratina, and then the last time she saw Meowth was in the Pastoria Marsh, when she was swallowed by that giant explosion. But as her answers come to an end, she begins her own line of questioning, wondering where James has been this entire time, as they thought that he had been captured by Galactic, and worse, they found out that Butch and Cassidy are indeed here in Sinnoh, and it looks like they are working for Galactic as well. Jessi then questions how James knew to come to Canalave City, to which the purple-haired man states that he was getting emails from Domino in the Hoenn region, stating that she had been in contact with you and Meowth the entire time. She said that she had followed some of your guys' signals here, so I came here looking. That's when I ended up at Iron Island. However, this entire statement is throwing up red flags for Jessi, as the redhead states that she hasn't had any communications with Domino since they left for Sinnoh, which immediately causes James to go pale in the face. What do you mean? I was talking with her. Not only that, but I was having communications via email. I know it was her. However, Jessi merely shakes her head. No, it wasn't. This causes the two to both hang their head, as a sudden realization dawns on them. If Domino wasn't the one who was talking with James, then that means that something else had hacked their systems. And if that's the case, then there's no telling what other information they have on their activities here in Sinnoh since they've gotten to the region. You realize what this means, James says, to which Jessi nods. We're gonna have to go dark, completely underground. We won't be able to have any contact with anyone, not even Matori or the boss. But how are we gonna find Meowth? James questions, to which Jessi states that the good old-fashioned way is probably gonna be their only hope. Word of mouth. Considering a walking, talking Meowth isn't something that everyone sees every day, so somebody had to have spotted it somewhere. But Jessi knows where they can start, as the last place that she saw Meowth was in Pastoria City, and it just so happens there was somebody there that had accompanied her on their mission. So with any luck, maybe they have some information. But before they leave Canalave, there is going to be one thing that Jessi wants to do, to which James simply says, the gym battle, to which Jessi nods. Yeah, before flashing her badge case to reveal that even though they've been separate, she's been quite active. However, James doesn't want to be shown up, so he flashes his ribbon case as well, showing that he has been quite active in the contest while looking for them. Well, it seems like we both haven't given up our main goals here in Sinnoh, considering everything that has been going on, causing the two to laugh. Well, it looks like we're going to have a little bit more work to do so we can figure out what exactly is going on, because from all angles, it seems like everyone is against them, and they need to find Meowth. That way, they can figure out who is truly behind all of this. Oh, don't worry, we will, Jessi says. But first, let's take care of my gym battle, causing the two to settle in for the night, to get as much rest as possible, because they know from this moment on, the chance of that ever happening again is going to be slim to none. The next morning, bright and early, we find ourselves in the Canalave gym, the very same spot where Jessi decided to plop in on the previous gym battle of the leader Byron. The two are standing across from each other while both Roark and James watch on, silent, to see the outcome of this gym battle. All the while, the two engage in small talk about the previous day and how Byron is thankful for Jessi and her help at Iron Island. Even though she arrived in his gym in a rather odd way, he appreciates all of the effort that she put in, and he recognizes her talent as a trainer. So he's going to make sure that he honors her skill with his defensive style of battling, as he sends in his first Pokemon, Probopass. This Pokemon looks rather odd, but it shares a familiarity with the gym leader Roxanne and her ace Nosepass from the Hoenn region, to which Byron confirms, stating that Probopass evolves from Nosepass. So if she's familiar with its pre-evolution, then she's going to be in for a world of surprise, because upon evolution, Probopass takes on the Steel type, giving it a whole new arsenal to mount an awesome defense. Taking Taking heed of these words, Jessi decides that she's going to lead with one of her newest evolutions, in the form of Camerupt. This immediately perks the interest of Byron as the battle begins, and he commands for a rock slide, to which Jessi immediately counters with one of her own. This is an odd feeling for the redhead, as Nummel was always so cute and sweet and innocent, and very relaxed, but Camerupt, ever since its evolution, has taken on a little bit more of an aggressive personality, though it still shares that same dopey look that its pre-evolution used to have. However, Jessi's not complaining, as it has the power to match Probopass blow for blow, as the rocks collide, causing a brief cloud of dust to erupt in the middle of the gym. However, Byron isn't going to stagnate in this battle, as he decides to go on the attack with the move called Earth Power. Suddenly, Probopass slams itself into the gym floor as cracks and what looks like to be an orange hue erupt from within. Oh no, this ain't good, Jessi thinks to herself, to which she is immediately confirmed, as the cracks make their way to Camerupt. However, the redhead thinks that she may have just the move to counter this, commanding a magnitude in its stay, trying to block the attack. But unfortunately, because of the very power of magnitude, it's not enough to completely stop the attack, merely reduce its power, causing Camerupt to take a decent amount of damage. Byron likes the way this girl thinks, and in response, he decides to go on the offense once more with a magnet bomb. Suddenly, the nose on Probopass begin to levitate as they shoot off in multiple directions around Camerupt, trying their best to confuse the lava camel. This isn't good, Jessi thinks to herself. Everything that this thing has in its arsenal allows them to attack from a distance, so she's going to have to reciprocate this by attacking from a distance as well, as she commands for a lava plume. Suddenly, the smokestacks on the back of her fire type begin to contract as lava and fire are spewed from them. The power of these attacks has enough to throw off the magnet reading of those noses, and completely causes them to miss Camerupt. All the while, their host Probopass ends up taking damage from the fire type attack. Though it's not enough to take it out, it is enough to send the message. Byron's going to have to be a little bit more creative if he wishes to have any chance at beating her fire type. However, as the noses flurry about in the air looking for a point of target, Byron is happy to oblige this, as he commands Probopass to use a discharge. This causes Jessi to laugh, as she thinks that the steel type forgot that Camerupt is half ground, so this isn't going to affect it. However, Byron is fully aware of this effect, as he tells her so, before he tells her to look up, as the noses begin to absorb the electricity that just bounces off of Camerupt, causing them to lock their sights back on the fire type before immediately finding their target and slamming into it with everything that they have. This causes a yelp of pain to erupt from it, which Jessi knows that she needs to take heed of. So in this moment, she decides to go all or nothing, commanding Camerupt to rush into Probopass and try and put some distance between itself and the noses. However, this isn't going to be as easy as she thought, as the noses are giving chase, while Probopass charges another discharge in order to charge them once more, so that way they can cause even more damage. But this is where Jessi reveals the one move that she's been holding back Camerupt in an attempt to try to preserve it as long as possible. However, this is the perfect time, as she tells Camerupt to use Attract. Suddenly, Camerupt stops as it begins to glow red in its face before winking at Probopass, causing the steel type to stop dead in its tracks with the charging discharge before dropping the attack in its entirety, as hearts glaze over its eyes. This is when Jessi yells for Camerupt to jump out of the way, to which it does, putting all the power it has into a jump that causes the nose before slamming into its wielder, knocking it out in one fell swoop, bringing this first clash in the gym to an end. This leaves everyone in a complete stunned silence, including Jessi, as she didn't actually think that would work. However, it did, to which Byron is rather impressed, recalling his Pokemon, telling Jessi that he's never seen Attract used like that, and normally most trainers have a problem dealing with his nose pass and its multiple noses when they're used in the defensive pattern like that. Having two enemies isn't something that most people can fend off at once, but it seems that Jessi has experience in this. Maybe it's due to all of her activities tracking down the Galactic organization, to which Jessi simply agrees with him, not wanting to give off the aura that she's a member of an international criminal organization. However, the redhead can't worry about that now, as she chooses to get back to the battle, recalling Camerupt so that way it can rest after all the damage that it just took. However, the same can't be said for Jessi, as Byron's going to keep on the pressure with his second Pokemon, Magneton. As the magnet emerges from its ball, Jessi can tell that this thing is a much higher level than Byron's previous Pokemon, so she decides whether she likes it or not. She's going to have to go with someone of equal power that doesn't have a type disadvantage against it, which only really leaves one Pokemon on her entire team. But unfortunately, she's going to have to call on it, as she declares, Exploud, I choose you. As the sinister speaker emerges from its ball, a hyper voice is let out to establish its dominance before it looks to Jessi and the opponent before it. Exploud immediately recognizes this place, and it knows that there's another Pokemon here that it was trying to battle last time before Jessi recalled it, and it wants to battle that one. However, Jessi tells it that they don't have time for it to be stubborn. This is a gym battle, and if Exploud wants to battle that Pokemon, then it has to get through Magneton. This entire exchange with the two big mouth terrors as they begin to argue with each other catches both Byron and Roark off guard, to which the gym leader asks if this is a usual thing for Jessi, and James confirms it, stating that her and Exploud aren't always seen eye to eye, but when push comes to shove, she usually is able to get it to do what she needs to. However, the ferociousness of the redhead is causing Roark to shake a little bit, while Byron is getting a little agitated, stating that Jessi needs to do something about this. Is Exploud going to be her Pokemon or not? This causes the redhead to stop arguing with Exploud, looking it in the eyes, and pointing to the battlefield. The two stop They're bickering as Exploud turns reluctantly, choosing to listen to its trainer. Well then, it looks like we're gonna have a battle on our hands. Now, Magneton, use Flash Cannon. This is where Jessi decides to counter with the Hyper Voice. However, Exploud is gonna show that it's not gonna put up with any type of distractions that come its way, as it immediately uses a Hyper Voice to overpower the Flash Cannon, and before Jessi can give the next command, it's on the attack again with a hammer arm that slams into Magneton, driving it into the gym floor. While this isn't enough to end the Steel type, it does leave it cratered, while Jessi looks on shocked. However, Byron isn't going to let this normal type upstage them, as he commands for a metal sound. As the magnet begins to vibrate and an echo begins to pierce throughout the ears of the entire gym, Exploud is caught off guard, as its hypersensitive hearing causes it to begin to wince in pain. Covering her ears, Jessi can see that it can't focus. This is where she's yelling to it to try and get through to use another hammer arm. However, Exploud can't really hear anything at this moment, and it decides to take actions into its own hand, bringing down one of its massive feet on top of the magnet, in the form of a stomp, pushing it even deeper into the gym battlefield. Immediately, everything goes quiet, as Exploud looks down at its foot before lifting it, only to see that Magneton has spirals in its eyes. The normal type then looks at Byron, almost to say, come on, give me something better, while Jessi just merely looks on, a bit surprised that Exploud was able to finish things so quick. Exploud is something else, Byron says, as he recalls his magnet, stating that he's never seen a normal type with that type of power to level a Steel type that quick, but it seems that you two have a lot of work to do. To which Jessi merely nods her head, as she states that she's well aware of it. Exploud has been with her for a long time now, though it's proving to be more and more difficult as the days go on. That may be true, Byron says, but it's a good thing that you're willing to still work with it, choosing to use it in gym battles. Each moment you spend with it is going to give you a chance to bond. Now let's test just how deep that bond is, the gym leader states as he sends in his final Pokemon, Bastiodon. With the emergence of the Steel Fossil, Exploud kinda smirks, as this is the Pokemon that it wanted to engage in battle with. Byron wastes no time in starting things with an Iron defense, to which Exploud immediately reciprocates with another Hammer Arm. However, the Steel type merely just takes the attack, not even flinching in the process. Smirking, Byron says they're gonna have to do better than that, as he tells Bastiodon to counter with a Stone Edge. Suddenly, the massive shield face of the Steel type glows, as stones begin to emerge and pelt Exploud at point-blank range, sending the normal type into the gym wall with enough force that leaves it unable to really move. Jessi looks on, shocked at what she just saw. She's never seen Exploud overpowered like that. However, she's not the only one, as the normal type wasn't expecting that type of retaliation from it. Pulling itself out of the rubble, Exploud jumps onto the battlefield, ready to engage once more. Jessi commands for a Hyper Voice, to which Exploud actually executes. However, this is going to be countered with a Metal Burst, and even though Exploud is strong, Metal Burst proves to be far stronger, as the energy from the metallic attack beat through the sound waves that are heading Bastiodon's way, only to strike Exploud once more. This forces the normal type to take a knee, as it's taken more damage in this battle than both it and Jessi thought would even happen. Neither one of the two are unsure on how to respond to this, and the frustration of this moment causes Exploud to go AWOL, as it decides that it doesn't need Jessi giving it commands. She's only slowing it down. Charging both of its fists, Exploud jumps into the air with everything that it has, with it the plan to bring down a double hammer arm on the head of Bastiodon and end this in one fell swoop. However, Byron just lets this happen, as Bastiodon assures its defense with an Iron defense, causing the Steel type to glow, as the two hammer arms strike it in its face, having really no effect at all, causing Exploud to look on, stunned, only for Bastiodon to retaliate with a Stone Edge that strikes the normal type one final time, sending it into the same spot in the gym wall that it had before, knocking it out in the process. This leaves Jessi stunned. She can't believe Exploud just lost like that. There's never really been a trainer that could challenge its power. However, Byron simply looks on with a smirk. I told you, my defense is absolute. There's no way you'll be able to break it with such pitiful techniques like that. If you can't get aligned with your Pokemon, then you will lose this gym battle. Now show me your talent as a trainer. The talent I complimented you on when we started this match. As Jessi recalls Exploud, she thinks about the Pokemon that she has with her. Not really many can stand up to the power of this thing. Camerupt would be her best shot, but it's taken a lot of damage, so she decides that she's gonna have to try her other newest evolution, as she calls on Celio to start the battle. Interesting choice, Byron says. You know that the Rock and Steel typing of my Pokemon is a complete counter to what you have in that Ice type over there, don't you? To which Jessi simply states that she doesn't believe that typing is all that important. It's if the Pokemon can actually pull it off, and she thinks that Celio has exactly what it is needed to do so. Well, let's test that, Byron says, as he commands another Metal Burst. This is immediately countered by Celio with a Water Pulse that seemingly nullifies the Steel type attack, allowing Jessi to continue her offense with an Aurora Beam. However, this is going to be met with an Iron defense that Byron uses to solidify the sturdiness of his Pokemon once again. There's no way you're getting through. Ice has no effect here, so you're going to have to try something better. Knowing that the gym leader's right, Jessi decides to go all out, as she commands for an Ice Ball, which Celio begins to charge, pelting Bastiodon. However, it barely even affects the Steel type, causing Byron to get a bit agitated, as he commands for another Metal Burst. This is when Jessi tells Celio to roll out of the way, to which, even though it's evolved, it still has the ability to roll side to side, unlike its pre-evolution, which could roll in 360 365 degrees due to its round body. Doing so, this provides enough time for Celio to charge the second ice ball and pelt Bastiodon. While this one was more powerful, it still didn't really do any damage to the steel type, causing Byron to respond with another metal burst, to which Jessi just repeats the same maneuver, allowing Celio to escape with little damage from the steel type attack before charging its third ice ball to slam into the steel type. This time, it was actually felt by Bastiodon, to which Byron takes notice. So, in this moment, he decides that it's time that they end this battle, as he commands Bastiodon to charge down the battle. This immediately causes Jessi to panic, as the distance was allowing them to actually mount an offense. If it's closed by Bastiodon, then there's going to be no way that Celio is going to be able to survive. Immediately, she commands it to fire the fourth ice ball, even though it's not ready. Doing so, Celio lets out the most powerful one that has been able to form. Though it's premature, Jessi hopes that it's going to be enough to end this, but unfortunately for her, Bastiodon has the ability to control the stones from a stone edge that Byron commands, allowing it to push through the ice type move, slamming not only the stones, but its whole steel body into the ice type, using its weight as momentum to end it in one fell swoop, bringing this battle to a 1v1. You had spirit, I'll give you that, Byron says, but thinking that an ice type could beat my defensive monster is shooting for the stars, though I give you an A for effort. Recalling her ice type, Jessi knows that she has only one choice left. However, she just hopes that it's up to the challenge, as she sends back in Camerupt. As the fire type emerges from its Pokeball and plops down on the battlefield, Jessi can see that there's been a stark change in its personality due to the fatigue that it feels from the previous battle. Camerupt is looking more like itself back when it was a Numel, which means this is going to make things a little bit harder for Jessi. If she can't get this thing fired up, then they're going to lose this gym battle, which she immediately tells Camerupt so, but it seems completely oblivious to, and as the match begins, Byron calls for a Stone Edge to get things started in an attempt to knock this thing out once and for all. However, Jessi immediately counters with a Rock Slide, which Camerupt is able to do, though it's with little enthusiasm and doesn't block most of the stones, merely preventing them from hitting Camerupt dead on as splinters begin to pelt the fire type, causing a little bit of recoil damage. This is what was needed to shock it back into its battling spirit, as the stacks on its back begin to constrict once again and smoke begins to pour out. That's it, Jessi says, we need to get going. Now, Camerupt, use Lava Plume. In doing so, Camerupt lets out a mighty battle cry, as its stacks begin to constrict once again as they bellow with lava, smoke, and flames. However, Bastiodon isn't going to be intimidated by this, merely responding with a metal burst that matches the power of the fire type attack. This stalemates the two, putting Jessi in an awkward position. However, Byron isn't going to let her regain any type of footing in this battle, as he commands Bastiodon to go on the attack with another Stone Edge. Charging into battle, the fossil begins to circulate the stones around itself, just as it had done when it decided that it was going to take out Celio. This puts Jessi in an awkward position, but she thinks she may have a counter that can put things in her favor as she calls for Attract once more. Once again, the fire type winks at its opponent in an attempt to infatuate Bastiodon. However, this is when the Redhead and Camerupt are going to find out firsthand that Attract does have one downside, as it's revealed that Byron's Bastiodon is female, just like Jessi's Camerupt, which means that it's going to have no effect, allowing the fossil to slam into Camerupt unimpeded for full damage, sending it sliding across the battlefield in an attempt to put it into the wall, just like Xcloud had been before it. However, Jessi tells Camerupt that it needs to stay strong. They're so close to winning this battle, to which the fire type responds by digging in its hoofs as it slams its massive trunk-like legs into the battlefield. This causes a magnitude to erupt throughout the gym, which Byron wasn't expecting, forcing Bastiodon to take the ground type attack head on, just as it had done to Camerupt right before. Though the Steel Goliath has a near impenetrable defense, the fact of the matter is, the power of that magnitude was nearly at max level. The ground cracks and rips as Camerupt finally comes to a stop as Bastiodon begins to make its way back to its feet. The two titans stare each other down, as Jessi and Byron both know that this next attack is going to be the end of this battle. Trying to keep his distance, Byron decides that it's time to go on the offensive with an attack that can strike everything at once, as he calls for an Earthquake. This immediately gets Jessi nervous, as Bastiodon jumps up into the air before slamming down on the ground with everything that it has. Knowing that she only has one option to counter this, she tries to go for a high roll, as she commands Camerupt to use a magnitude, in hopes that it can at least match the power of Bastiodon. Spewing flames and smoke from its nostrils and the stack on its back, Camerupt does the same as its opponent, as it jumps into the air before slamming all of its weight down into the gym battlefield. Suddenly, it's not only the gym battlefield that is shaking, or the gym itself, but it seems like the entire harbor of Canalave City is rumbling as all of the islands sway with the motion that Camerupt and Bastiodon have just caused. Outside of the gym is a scene of panic as everyone runs for cover in an attempt to try and avoid being squashed by some sort of toppling building. It seems like an eternity as the shaking ruptures their small city. Then, just when it seems like it's never going to stop, the rumbling of the earth beneath them slowly begins to quiet. This leaves a bunch of puzzled citizens unsure of what just happened as they look around trying to figure out the source of that. But unfortunately for them, they are not privy to that information. However, we are, heading back to the gym to see that Camerupt and Bastiodon are both staring each other down before the Steel Goliath collapses under its own weight, leaving both Camerupt and Jessi Jessi, shocked that they were actually able to pull that off. With a smirk, Byron comments that it seems that the magnitude managed to get the high roll like Jessi was aiming for. But not only that, the fact that Camerupt jumped at the exact moment that it did allowed it to dodge most of the damage that Earthquake would have dealt to it, as the first, second, and third waves of the shakes didn't really hit the fire type, allowing it to come down at the perfect time to counter Earthquake and overpower the move before striking Bastiodon. This put Jessi in the winning position as she watches on, with Byron recalling Bastiodon before walking over to the redhead and presenting her with the badge that she had just earned. "You are a very skilled trainer. Don't ever let anybody tell you different," Byron says. "You have earned this badge today, and I look forward to seeing what you can do in the Sinnoh League." The redhead takes the badge as she looks at it before peering up to the stands and locking eyes with Roark, causing the two to blush a bit. However, this is immediately stopped when Jessi switches her gaze over to James, as the two look intensely at each other. They know what the next step is, as now they need to find Meow, and whoever's been pulling the strings behind everything that caused them to get in this situation in the first place. And this is where we are going to leave things for now. So tell me, how did you feel about this one, and what did you think about the events that happened on Iron Island? Are you excited now that Jessi and James have finally managed to reunite themselves with each other? How do you feel about the gym battle that Jessi had with Byron? Did you find it enjoyable? And did she truly earn the badge? And what about this secret crush that she seems to be having on Roark? Is that going to go anywhere? And let's not forget who's pulling the strings behind the scenes. It seems like someone is actively working against our favorite terrible trio. Is it Butch and Cassidy, as they have joined the Galactic organization? Or is there someone else that we don't know about working in the shadows? Let me know your thoughts and comments down below.